here, and I'm just going to talk you through a few ways which I find really useful to find literature. Um, Basically, there are a few shortcuts that took me quite a long time to find out, and it's things that I really wish that I'd done beforehand. Um, I think one of the points that I've been emphasising in the lectures, and that I'm going to keep on emphasising, is that in terms of this module and in terms of the assessment, it's 3,000 words, but on one topic. So you really need to start looking for depth of literature. As you can see there, it's 3,000 words, so you really do need to start doing that. Now, it's not necessarily a case of finding a million articles, and we've put some on Sims Capital to start off with. However, I really do think that you should start to look for more than more than just those. My first recommendation, which I'm going to go to now, is to look at the articles we've put on Sims Capitals for the topic areas that interest you. Okay, so the first sets of literature are quite generic. I've put level 1, level 2, level 3. And you can see as the levels go down, sorry, the levels go up, the more difficult the reading becomes. Okay, now, I mean, that's fine, that is what it is, but if you read the level 1 paper and the research interests you, then go on to the level 2 and level 3 papers, because you will be able to use them within your assessment. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, if I go on down, and I know there's a lot of stuff on Sims Capital, but if I go on to the first of the topic areas and we look at this idea of healthy bodies, um, that really is my first recommendation, is to start looking at the papers that they've got on there and to use those as a way of um, getting into the assessment. So, I mean, that's the first thing. Now, if you were interested in writing about this topic area, what I would recommend doing is a couple of things. Now, the first one I'm going to show you is about using Google Scholar, but using Google Scholar in a smart way. Okay, um, so if I go on here and I go down to Google Scholar, sometimes Google Scholar can give me a million different papers, and that's not really very useful to me, because if I just put in obesity, and you might be talking about unorthodox bodies, and obesity might come up, you can see that there's sort of 1.8 million papers on obesity, which really, really, really makes it difficult to function in terms of writing your essay and trying to cut that down. So one of the things that you could do, say for example you've read this paper by Lorraine Cow and Joe Harris, which talks about obesity and talks about fitness testing in schools. Now, one of the things that you can do in this scenario would be, let's copy the title of this paper. Okay, so fitness testing in schools, misdirected effort. If that's a paper you like and that's a paper which you think, yeah, that's really useful, what you can then do is, if we put that into Sims Capital, if you put that into Google Scholar, you can see that that comes up. So there's the paper. Now, there's no point then opening that paper up again if you've already read it. However, this button here, I think, is really useful for you guys in terms of finding literature. So if I click on this cited by 42, what you can see is there's other people who have used this paper. Okay, now what you can see there is that some of it is maybe looking at some different factors. But if we were to filter this, and if I was to put a search bar in, and if I was to put obesity in, which I've started to do, you can see that it highlights the papers that's referenced by these people and looks at that. Now, you can also see that there's stuff there on fitness levels, okay, and health-related exercise. So you can see there that these are all stuff which are related. The stuff at the top is maybe not as related, but as you can see there, monitoring health and fitness, all of these papers are stuff which you might be able to use to inform your assignment. So you could then go on to read this work, okay? That's something that I would recommend doing in terms of helping you find research. So that's just one really useful quick win in terms of actually finding more research on a topic that interests you and that could use that to support it. Now, one of the other buttons that I want to show you here is this button here. So if you look there, you can see by Lorraine Cowell's name that there's a highlighted underline, which means that she's got a Google Scholar page. Okay, so if you click on her name, what you can see is there's all of her research, which is accessible via Google Scholar, and it's available there for you to look at. So you can see the one that's been cited the most, which is this one here with 96 citations, which may be slightly older. So you can sort it by cited, or you can sort it by year. So here you can see the more recent papers, monitoring health and physical activity, and so on. Okay. So for me, that's two really useful ways of just finding literature. And I'm aware that I've just put on there this person, or I will just search looking at obesity, fitness, and health. But that would just be a useful way of doing that. And again, if you were to go to the lecture slides of any of the lectures, and let's, for the sake of that, let's have a look at let's have a look at the disability lecture. Okay. Now, if you were to open up the lecture slides, and go to the reference lists, there's two things that you can do. You can, first of all, you can search for the papers that have been used by me. Okay, so I've used I've used this paper here on empowering children with special education needs. Right. So if I put Command C, or copy it however I like, if I copy the title, then what I can then do again is, if I'm on Google Scholar, I can search for this paper. So it might be that it's a paper I've referenced, but I've not put up on Sims Capital. Now, it's really important that you don't just copy and paste the reference list that I use, because these are papers we've read, and I will know if you've done that. But if you click on that, you could then read that paper. Okay. So if you just click on full text at St Mary's, you could read that paper, and you could go in that way, and you can get it through Summon. Okay. Or what you can do again is look at this cited by 21, and look at the other people that have referenced that, and then go on to build upon that. So again, you can see that there's a number of different people here looking at children's participation and disabilities, and there's a number of papers here that have referenced that paper. Okay, so that's a really good way to start trying to get a deep literature search, not just looking for literature and not just referencing literature, but actually trying to get a deep literature search on the topic area that interests you. Now, the other way, if we go back to these lecture slides, that you can do it, and one of the things that I've done on there, that would be the wrong tab, is within the lectures, I'm starting to try and put key authors in the field on there. So if we take this example from disability, and we take Hayley Fitzgerald, if I type this into a browser, I should be able to find her research. Okay, if you go down, you can see that there's a selected group of publications there, which are from her work. Now, the first couple, okay, are maybe not related to disability, but as you go down, you see that there are others that are. Now, that's not just to say just to use that person, but it's worth having a look at these people and trying to get their take on things. All right. Now, in addition to that, the other really good starting place to look is within this book. Okay, it is within the Sport Pedagogy and Introductions to Teaching and Coaching book. Now, we have got this down as one of our key readers. And for you guys that haven't already looked at it, I would really recommend that. Now, within this, and if I could click on the Look Inside button here, what you see is there are chapters on, if it's loading, on pretty much all of the areas which we've looked at. Okay, so young people, sporting bodies and vulnerable identities, disabling experiences, gender, ethnicity. It's all there. So it's a really good starting place to get a chapter. Now make sure when you do reference that, you reference the name of the author. So if you see the gender and learning physical education, it's Anne Flintoff, and that you don't reference Kathleen Armour. Okay, because it's not Armour, although she's brought this all together and she's edited it, she's not written that chapter. Okay, last and by no means least, another way of searching for literature which I would recommend is actually searching in journals itself. Now, I've got 3 or 4 journals which I'd recommend here, and I've highlighted them for you. So we've got Physical Education and Sport Pedagogy, Sport Education and Society, European Physical Education Review, and International Review for the Sociology of Sport. If I'm to take this example of Sport Education and Society, and if I was to search eating disorders, for example, then what I know it's going to give me is it's going to give me journal articles on eating disorders, but not just on eating disorders, but actually on eating disorders and its relation to sport, education and society. So it's not such a broad search on eating disorders, okay? So here you can see how the eating disorders shape body pedagogies in health and PE. And so you can just see that by putting that in there, I've got quite a focused search, okay? And again, you're seeing some of the same papers coming up in here. But what I'm saying is, if you just want to have a general look, use this rather than Google Scholar, okay? If I come into this journal and I search the term gender, then what we'll see is that we start to get some papers on gender there. Now again, gender in this scenario is possibly slightly too broad, although there's some stuff there that you might want to look at. So again, but by using this in here, in this journal, it's all PE related. And that's something that I really can't get across to you enough. You really want to keep looking at this, okay? Because this will give you a good foundation to build upon. Now the other thing that I was going to say is what I think I've actually just told you about, but is looking at, once you find a lecturer or you find an author whose work you like, try and look at others' work, who they use, and also try and look for more articles by them. Okay, so that's kind of I don't know how much more else there is to say, but I think that's just something that I would kind of try to get across to you. And again, what you see is the same authors' names keep appearing within the same topics. So don't just read one article by that person, continue to read more articles by that person, and that will help you in terms of building the arguments that you want to build. Okay, and again, look, exactly the same thing can be done for the other topics. So I've just talked about disability, but if I was putting ethnicity here in the European Physical Education Review, you'd see that A, it's a different journal article, but B, that it comes up with other articles. Now, the one thing that I would say, and I probably should have said this at the start, is to access this, you want to be logging in through St Mary's University. Okay, so if you're on campus, it's really easy to get journal articles. If you're not on campus, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you log in to SimSpace or to StaffNet, and that you actually then log in through the library. Okay, and once you're logging in through the library, what you'll be able to do is so once you log in through the library, and I should have set this up beforehand, okay, is, so it's not got my staff card on here, but you'll be able to access the journals through that, okay? And that's really important. So if you do a summons search, which is the library search engine, if you search the journal and you're off campus, if I log in and hopefully it can come up with the journal, Sport Education Society, then if I log in through the library and I'm off campus, I'll get access to this. Now, if I don't log in through the library, and it's probably going to not work now that I'm on podcast and recording, you won't get access to it, okay? And it will ask you to pay for the articles. So that's something that I really going to recommend to you guys. If you're on campus, you don't need to log in, but if you're off campus, you really need to log in to make sure that that works, okay? Yeah, so I mean that's all really that got to say. So happy hunting, and hopefully you enjoy reading around the topic area and researching for the assignment. Thank you very much.